The Baltimore Ravens have to get to 53 players on their final roster by tomorrow at 4 p.m. And a lot of the roster decisions are right in front of our face as we talk about the roster starting to take shape and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are here diving into Ravens content and coverage where you're 5 days per week. And on today's show, we have an absolutely packed one because the Ravens have to get to 53 players by tomorrow at 4 p.m. And who knows when they'll actually announce it. Last year, they did it around 8 p.m., so we have to wait and see. But we're going to be diving into the Ravens roster beginning to take shape and a lot of these moves really being right in front of our faces. They have some really tough decisions to make, but a lot of their roster is pretty much already set. Bubble players also got real on their chances, on their roster chances, not just guys who were fighting for roster spots, guys who were fighting for opportunities to get snaps, and also get into some roster scenarios as well. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. It's been an incredible journey here on Locked On Ravens. I'm going to continue it on here, and I cannot wait to dive into this season. But let's dive into the show as the Ravens roster. I mean, look, there are a lot of guys on it that have earned their spots or stars, really quality depth pieces, but it's those last couple of spots that are going to give the Ravens some trouble, and that is a good thing. It is. You'd rather be in that situation where you're probably going to have to let go of some talented guys as opposed to the other scenario, which is you don't feel good enough about the last few guys for those spots. And that you might be saying, thank you, Kevin, Mr. Captain Obvious, but hey, I just want to put it out there. Now, the roster itself feels like it is taking shape. There were a lot of teams that made moves on Sunday. The Ravens were not one of those teams. They're going to take this down to the absolute wire, it feels like. Maybe we'll get a move or two today. I doubt it, though. The Ravens want to have that competitive advantage, it feels like. But, you know, so some of the comments John Harbaugh has said, we talked a little bit about what he said after the game on Saturday, by the way. The Ravens won that game 30-3, and we had a ton of coverage on Saturday. We had our Locked On Ravens watch along for the game where we react to every single play live during the game. So if you didn't know those were a thing, now you know. You can tune in. We have an awesome community there already. We also had the instant reaction episodes, and we had the Locked On Ravens squad show. But we talked about what John Harbaugh had to say a little bit about some of the players who were on that roster bubble. Obviously, one of those being Keon Martin, the cornerback, who was unreal in this Commanders game, had a pick six, really good special teams play, really good play against the run. He's been doing it all this preseason. Ruben Lowry has cemented his status, in my opinion, on the 53-man roster. There's not a doubt in my mind Ruben Lowry is going to make this roster. But Keon Martin, I had said on our bonus episode on Saturday before the game, I was like, look, Keon Martin is this bubble guy to me. If he has a really good game, he's going to make the roster. If he doesn't, well, you'd still love to have a guy like that in your practice squad. He obviously had the good game, and John Harbaugh talked about that and said Keon played well. He keeps making big plays, and that's something that's accounted for sure. I think he played sound as well. He did things the right way. He played just like that throughout the whole camp. And he actually talked about the vice block that he had on special teams and actually said that he liked the vice block even better than the pick six. And we know John Harbaugh's special teams background. We talked about that in the bonus episode for yesterday, where it's just like, yeah, I mean, John Harbaugh's going to like those special teams things because we all know John Harbaugh's special teams background. But Keon Martin's not necessarily set in stone on this roster. I don't want to say that, he's 100% a lock to make it, because you look at some of the decisions that they have to make for that final roster spot and guys who at least have put themselves in consideration for maybe the last one or two spots on that bubble on defense. CJ Okoye and CJ Revan are on the defensive line. Jay Higgins and Chandler Martin is inside linebackers. Keon Martin, obviously, as that corner. It's just going to come down to where the Ravens value. Obviously, John Harbaugh's made it pretty clear, not that it's like a guarantee, but you can certainly tell from his comments that feels like Rasheen Ali is going to make this roster. Feels like the Ravens are going to keep 4 running backs. John Harbaugh essentially has said as such, and on Saturday after the game, really went all in about how he's a big part of the special teams group right now, and he's starting on every special teams unit. So he's talking about he's on the punt team, he's on the punt return team, he's on the kickoff team, he's on the dynamic return plan. Like, we know that's how you make the Ravens roster. So my personal opinion, it's not about Ali. I think Ali actually played well in the game on Saturday. I just generally think, and especially in the Ravens situation, I generally think that 4 running backs is a little too many, in my opinion. I think 3 is that sweet spot. I'd totally be fine with them keeping Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, and then I guess you risk losing Rasheen Ali on waivers. And if you do, I'd be fine with Myles Gaskin as that practice squad back. But we know that with the roles Ali is playing, it feels likely he will make the roster. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means you're not going to be able to keep one of these guys who, in my opinion, has proven to at least be in consideration for a roster spot. And you can look up and down the roster right now. I mean, we can identify a lot of different positions on the roster where it's just set. We know that guys aren't going to make or miss the roster at those positions. Quarterback is one. Lamar Jackson, Cooper Rush. I really don't think Devin Leary's making this roster. He could be the practice squad quarterback because he knows the plays. He's been there. The Browns released Tyler Huntley yesterday, by the way. Maybe that's an option. I don't know. I mean, I guess in the comments on YouTube, if you're watching or if you're watching the premiere in the live chat, or even if you're in audio form and you want to message me on social media, comment there. Who would you rather have, Devin Leary or Tyler Huntley is the practice squad quarterback for the Ravens? I mean, Leary played better in the second and third games as opposed to what he showed in the first game, but I don't know. So quarterback is one I feel pretty confident it's going to be 2. Fullback, obviously, is going to be Patrick Ricard. 6 wide receivers is a pretty big lock for me. 3 tight ends is a pretty big lock for me as well. This might be a hot take, but I think 9 offensive linemen is the way you go here if you're the Ravens, with Emory Jones being one of those 2 injured reserve designated candidates. And again, for those that don't know or weren't aware of the rule change, it used to be if you put a guy on IR before the roster was finalized, even during cutdown day, that player would have to miss the entire season. Now you are allowed during cutdown day to put 2 players on IR, and those players can be designated to return. So Emory Jones to me is one of those, but I don't think the Ravens need to keep a Nick Samek or a Garrett Dellinger, in my opinion. I don't have them on my roster right now. I just feel like that's fine to me. 4 safeties honestly feels like a pretty big lock here, and I'm including Ruben Lowry in that positional group. You have that. Feels like the Ravens kind of put the writing on the wall with Bo Braid when they played him literally until the end of the game. And I honestly put stock into playing time. Like, I don't think Bo Braid is making the roster because he was playing deep into this game. It's been kind of a fall for Bo Braid in that regard. And I like Bo Braid a lot personally. But to me, it feels like he's destined for the practice squad. But then you have some of the ones that maybe aren't as clear. Obviously, we talked about running back, defensive line potentially with some of the end guys there, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, corner. Special teams is all good too, by the way. Tyler Loop, Jordan Stout, Nick Moore. Those are your guys who are going to make the roster. And hopefully we're going to get Nick Moore on a lot this season. That's something we're hoping to do. He's been on the squad show a few times and provided great insight on Tyler Loop and whatnot. So be sure to check out the Locked on Ravens squad show too. Myself, Tim Njoku, and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail. Quick little plug there. But, Nick actually, he sent me a message to tell everybody, as he wasn't able to make the squad show on Saturday after the game. But he said to make me say to everybody, that Tyler Loop and Jordan crushed the preseason and we're locked and loaded for the regular season. So he's excited. He should be. The special teams unit played really well in that game against Washington. Obviously, Tyler Loop had the 61-yard field goal. And yeah, look, you can tell in that message Nick sent me. I mean, he's pumped, and I don't blame him. He should be. And I thought Jordan punted well in the game. I know Jordan's been up and down at times, but in this game in particular, I thought this was his best game of the preseason. So lots of positive things to build on for the Ravens here, and a lot of positive conversations about the roster. And honestly, I'm proud of a lot of these guys who left it all out on the line, made it tough. That was my thing. If you with me here and you've been listening to these shows as we've moved along through training camp, spring workouts, like the whole 9 yards, what I've been saying, and honestly, what a lot of the people I've had on the show have been saying is like, make it difficult for the Ravens. If you're a guy that's on that roster bubble, make them make a tough decision, put them in that spot. Because if you do that, that shows that you have done your job, that you have made it and made it tough for them to say, man, all right, we don't, this is a clear winner. We don't need this other guy. This first guy here wins. No, make them make that tough decision. If you do that, that means you played well. That means you did your job. So, there's still a lot to dive into here. Of course, as we get updates, we'll be covering all that over here on Locked On Ravens. But coming up, the bubble players, some of them are getting real on their roster chances, as well as some guys who are on the roster but are fighting for spots on the field in playing time. So we'll talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel's giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. And I'm going to crown my champion in August, and we have some movement over on FanDuel. The Baltimore Ravens have officially jumped to be the favorite to win the Super Bowl on FanDuel, plus 650. And then got the Eagles following them at plus 700, the Bills at plus 750, and the Chiefs at plus 800. The Ravens roster to me is the best in football. If they can stay healthy, I think they're going to make a run, and this could be the year for Lamar Jackson. So visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Continuing on here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still with you, talking Ravens football roster decisions. Again, Tuesday at 4 p.m. is when those rosters have to be trimmed to 53 players, but we know the Ravens, they like to hold on to every low competitive advantage they can. And as teams are scrambling, figuring out who they want to pick up off of waivers, the Ravens are holding those decisions close to the vest, at least for the public. And we don't know those decisions for a pretty long time, it feels like. Hopefully it's a little different this year for them. But again, last year they released them about 4 hours after 4 p.m. So we might have to be waiting a little while, but we're going to have all the updates and coverage for you on Locked On Ravens. We will be live when that official roster drops. So be sure, again, hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form wherever you get your podcast. We're 5 days a week plus more here on Locked On Ravens. And as I mentioned, we have the Locked On Ravens watch-alongs, instant reaction shows after games. We also have the Locked On Ravens squad show with myself, Sam Njoku, and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail. We have bonus episodes on the weekends when those headlines do permit. We got a lot of Ravens coverage here for you. So be sure also to follow me on social media, ChaosStriker34, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Lots of Ravens all the time here for me, and I absolutely love it. But some of the players on the bubble, whether it be the roster bubble or the playing time bubble, they gave some really insightful answers, in my opinion, not just on their play and their performance in the preseason and obviously in the Washington game that happened on Saturday, but just in terms of their potential places. And obviously one of those guys, we've talked about him, it's Keon Martin. It's the obvious one. I think the guy that everybody hopes makes the roster, myself included. We'll get a little bit into my updated roster predictions in the final part of the show. But Keon Martin, when he was interviewed by Garrett Downing over on the field after the game, he said a line that I think really speaks to me. And he said, quote, "I took advantage of every opportunity I had." And like I kind of talked about in the first part of the show, that is all that you can do. And look, I give Keon Martin a ton of credit. Jess Rebeck reminded everybody of this fact about Keon Martin. Keon Martin was not originally part of the Ravens undrafted free agent class. He tried out at rookie minicamp and he got a deal from the Ravens there. So he was someone that has fought, he has clawed his way into this moment, into making the Ravens make a tough decision. He didn't get any offers, Jeff ends up saying here, after going undrafted. And by the way, for those that don't know, Keon Martin's dad is former NFL defensive back Manny Martin. He played 5 seasons for the Oilers and the Bills. And Keon Martin actually talked about his relationship with his dad and his influence that his dad has had on him. And, said that he doesn't have 21 right now. That's the number his dad wore, and it's a number he's worn his whole life. But he said that he talks to him before every game, after every game. He's been in his corner, stuff like that. You love to hear it. But he was also asked about if he feels like he put himself in position to make the 53-man roster. And he said, quote, "Wherever the ball falls, that's where it's going to fall. I just focus on me. I know if I do what I have to do, then things are going to play out in my favor. If I make the 53-man, I make the 53-man. It's not something that's on my mind these last couple of days." So that's cool. Like the fact that is how it kind of goes. And I remember Tylan Wallace, was it last year or 2 years ago? I can't remember when it was. I'm just going to say it was a couple of years ago, even though it might have been last year. But at a certain period of time in the last couple of seasons, Tylan Wallace kind of gave insight. I think there was some inside thing. And I remember him having that 4 p.m. deadline pass. And that was when Tylan was still kind of on the roster bubble a little bit. And he didn't get a call. And when you don't get a call, that's good. Say, show up tomorrow. You're good. You don't have to talk to you. So that to me is kind of like when Keon Martin says it's not something that's on my mind these last couple of days. I can just imagine him obviously he's going to be a little antsy and probably checking his phone and whatnot, but it feels like legitimately he is at peace with what he did. And I don't blame him. I believe Keon Martin should make this roster. He can provide value on special teams. We saw the ball skills. That's somebody that if you want to talk about jack of all trades, we mentioned it with Rasheen Ali and how Harbaugh talked about how he's on all the special teams units. Well, you talk about a guy like Keon Martin who had an impactful play in pass defense and run defense and on special teams. That's a do-it-all player right there. I believe he should be on the roster. And look, I feel like even if he doesn't, like he said, hey, maybe another team picks him up off of waivers, or maybe he makes the practice squad for the Ravens, which I think that he would if he doesn't get claimed. But to me, he also was asked about what he's been able to show throughout training camp. And this answer to me, I love too. He said, quote, "I feel like I've just been able to show the player that I've been, in my opinion, since high school. I've been the same player since high school and since college. I feel like I've been able to show my savviness, my competitive edge, and the chip on my shoulder. I've been the same player ever since high school, and now it's starting to be seen in a bigger light. So that's been all that I've been showing since the start of training camp." He has stayed true to himself. He has not wavered from what makes him him, and he has been rewarded for that. Keon Martin was not on a lot of people's minds when training camp started and when spring workout started. But guess what? He made an opportunity for himself. He did this, and I'm really proud of him for that. And a lot of other people should be too. Now, Trenton Simpson, who again is not on the roster bubble, but he's on the playing time bubble. I think that he eased a lot of those talks, though, with his performance against the Commanders. He was all over the place. In my opinion, was Baltimore's best defensive player outside of Keon Martin. He had 6 total tackles, 1.5 sacks, a deflection that ended up going in the arms of Jalen Armour-Davis for an interception. That was the type of game you wanted to see out of Trenton. And he talked about how that performance could impact his confidence. And he said it shows that his work is paying off. He said this offseason, I was definitely grinding, and it just kept the main thing. But definitely confidence-wise, I'm ready for week 1 and for all the weeks of the season. I know the work I put in, and I know God has me, so that's all I can control. He also talked about how the game has slowed down a lot for him. He's going into his 3rd year. He says he's seen ball at a high level now. So it's definitely been slowing a lot for him. That's really cool, and that it sometimes takes time. Like Patrick Queen, for example, just to use another inside linebacker. I know it's first 3rd round pick, but PQ had a lot of adjusting to do in the NFL. First couple years, it was rough for PQ. He had a pretty big learning curve. But that third and fourth year, and obviously once Roquan came in, it helped, and PQ was playing at a higher level even before Roquan came in the beginning of that third year. But sometimes it just takes time and experience and maybe just watching a guy like Roquan go out there and do his thing. And to me, that confidence is a really big thing. And so while Simpson is going to make the roster, there's no doubt in my mind about that. There should be no doubt in anyone's mind about that. To hear the confidence level, to hear the fact that the game's slowing down for him, that gives me a little confidence because at this point, like I thought Teddy Buchanan was in the lead after week 2 against Dallas because he had the better game. Simpson didn't pop me in the first couple of games. But this game to me completely flipped everything on its head. And I'm really glad that he was able to make that impact. He also talked a little bit about Jay Higgins as well, who we'll get to a little in the final part of the show. He said he's just a playmaker. The Ravens bring in great players, and he's a playmaker every time he's out there. He's around the ball as a linebacker, having a knack for the ball. It takes you a long way. So, again, like these guys understand whether it's guys fighting for roster spots, guys fighting for playing time, like nothing is given, everything is earned. And it feels like to me that mindset is contagious in a good way around the entire team. So again, this Ravens team has talent all across the board. And coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be diving in to some roster scenarios for the Ravens. I'll give some updated predictions from my perspective, at least more than I've given already on the show. I know I've been giving some teases throughout, but we'll talk about that and a lot more coming up on Locked On Ravens. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening over on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now's the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew, no problem. Join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off on September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Moving and grooving right along on Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you on this Monday. We are so close to regular season football. You can just smell it in the air. Fall is coming. We're getting close. We're getting ready. And I am absolutely pumped. We're going to have all the daily Ravens coverage that you need over here on Locked On Ravens. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form. It's the same show either way. So maybe you want to watch one day, listen another day. Maybe you want to throw it on the TV one day and then you're driving to work the next day and, you don't want to watch while driving your car. Obviously, don't do that. So go ahead and listen over in audio form when you're doing that. Really appreciate all the support here. And our goal here in video form, first of all, is to hit 14,000 subscribers by the time the season starts. Now, a big audio thing, if you're an audio listener and you're here with us in audio form, is we're rolling out, obviously, on YouTube. We've got the updated thumbnails. Now in audio form, we've got updated thumbnails. So that is really, really cool. But let's talk about some roster scenarios, in my opinion. These are things that I've kind of been hammering home over the last couple of days. If you missed out on any of the bonus episodes that we did or the game day instant reaction, et cetera, be sure to go check that out because we talk about a lot of that as well in those. But the thing that I'm looking at with this roster right now, and we talked about it a little bit in the first and second parts of the show, is those like 2 or 3, maybe even one spot that is up for grabs right now. You have a lot of guys that potentially can make this roster. You're going to have a lot of guys you need to move on from. Now, the Ravens in the past have done handshake deals where essentially with veterans, they're not subject to waivers like the younger players are, which means that after the waiver period is over, they can go and they can sign with whoever they want. So what they've done with, for example, Brent Urban, and I expect this not necessarily for an active roster spot, but, practice squad's a little different. But what they've done is they've cut a guy like Brent Urban and they've said, hey, we're going to bring you back because we need to keep a younger guy on the roster. And then either they place a player on injured reserve and they have the roster spot that opens up for that player. That's a way that they can maneuver the roster a little bit. Now, with the injured reserve designations, it's just easier to outright keep guys now because it used to be, again, that if you got placed on IR before that roster cut down, and even on the day of, you were done for the season. Now that you have those two spots, like if they didn't have the ability to do that, I don't think Jay Higgins makes the roster. I don't think Keon Martin makes the roster. I think that they would have to subject those guys to waivers and hope that they would be not claimed and the Ravens could put them on their practice squad. They've had luck with that before. Darius Washington, an example of that. But, it's better just to put them on the roster. So they could do that. A guy that I can see them doing that with is John Jenkins. Now, you might be asking me, who would they put on injured reserve? Not that I'm saying it's going to happen, and knock on wood, it does not. But I would not be surprised if Isaiah Likely gets put on injured reserve. I don't think he makes it back for week 1. I could see him maybe coming back week 3 if they don't put him on injured reserve. Again, I don't know how serious. I mean, obviously it was a serious injury, but I don't know where he is in his recovery timeline, if he's close, if he's not. But if he'd come back like week 3 and the Ravens need that roster spot and he'd be like 90% healthy week 3, I might just throw him on injured reserve and say, hey, get as close to 100% as he can. Take the month. We're going to get this roster spot, and then they can figure it out from there. If he's going to come back in like week 2 and be like 99%, I think you probably keep him. But likely out of all of these players that I have on my roster here, and I've read it out, I've given updates on it, and I'll do that again here in a minute. I feel like Likely is probably the one that would go on injured reserve. They roll with Andrews, Kohler, and probably like a Scotty Washington, for example, who would make the practice squad, and they'd probably just call him up for game days. That, to me, would be if they did a handshake deal, because the whole point of a handshake deal is having the roster spot freed up, because, you can't add a 54th player just to do it. So that'd be somebody. I know a lot of people are also curious about David Ojabo. I think that keeping 4 outside linebackers is just too little. I think you have to keep 5. Now, my big brain roster scenario, which I have talked about before, is the Ravens cut David Ojabo and they sign Jadeveon Clowney instead. And they do the whole handshake thing. And then what you can do is either you don't even have to handshake Jenkins in that case if you don't want to. I think that you should, because he's going to be that Michael Pierce replacement. But if you just trade out Ojabo for Clowney, you can play him on the interior. He's not the same type of quote-unquote defensive lineman that John Jenkins is. John Jenkins is that big in the middle. He's going to eat up blockers type guy. Clowney, you kind of play as a D end in that case instead of an outside linebacker. You can do the same with Tavius Robinson, but that's the scenario, to me, in my opinion, that could potentially work. So I have 2 quarterbacks, Lamar and Cooper Rush, 4 running backs, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, Rasheen Ali, 1 fullback in Patrick Ricard, 6 wide receivers, Zay Flowers, Rashod Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Tez Walker, Tylan Wallace, LeJohntay Wester, the 3 tight ends, Andrews, Likely, and Kohler, 9 offensive linemen, Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum, Falele, Rosengarten, Bullock, Vincent, Cleveland, and Noteboom, 4 defensive linemen in this case with the handshake, Matabike, Jones, Washington, Peebles. I have 5 outside linebackers, Owe, Van Noy, Robinson, Green, and in this case, Ojabo. 5 inside linebackers, Smith, Simpson, Buchanan, Hummel, and Jay Higgins. 7 corners, Humphrey, Wiggins, Alexander, Awuzie, Tampa, Armour Davis, and Keon Martin. 4 safeties, Hamilton, Starks, Kane, and Lowry. And the 3 special teamers, Loop, Stout, and more, of the 2 injured reserve designations being Emory Jones and Adisa Isaac. So that's not my final roster prediction, but it is the one that is the most updated for me. Maybe it stays, maybe it doesn't. You're going to have to tune into Locked On Ravens to find that out and continue to keep up with me wherever you can, social media and the whole 9 yards. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if any roster moves happen, any updates, we will have them covered for you on the show. But in the meantime, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form as well, and subscribe. And we'll be back here tomorrow talking more Ravens, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.